Hello there, and welcome to the latest episode of Culture Conversations, brought to you by Polaris Praxis. I'm George.
And I'm Macdara.
And today we're going to be talking about a topic that in the majority of the conversations we're having with people at the moment seems to be coming up again and again and again.
Yep.
So Macdara, what is it?
It's the idea of, exiting the business and the owner being too stuck in the day-to-day. How do they help themselves step away and have a business that can run itself?
And it's so crucial, isn't it? Because I think as business owners ourselves, as founders of a business, you feel protective over what you do. You feel that if you're not involved, is someone going to do as good a job as me? Or I'm protective over certain information. But actually, what we found is that by reducing owner-founder dependence, by ensuring that you have a succession plan, you're building out your bench, and to use a bit of a cliche term, make yourself redundant, which hopefully doesn't scare people too much, what you actually end up doing is increasing the resilience of your business. You are making sure that there is not such a reliance on a small group of people. Clients may perceive you better, but crucially, if you're looking for an exit in, let's say, 3 to 5 years' time, it can actually really help increase your valuation.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that interim time, it can also help make the business a lot more efficient, stop you becoming a bottleneck to lots of decisions and processes within the business.
Yeah. So what we find in talking with clients, in having these conversations, is typically one of two scenarios. Is one, as Macdara said, sometimes they, business leaders and owners have a bit of a sense of, I'm too involved, or I don't have enough time to be able to do other stuff. Or sometimes they're blissfully unaware, and actually they think that what they are doing, being so involved in every decision, in every governance process, in every piece of reporting, in every commercial discussion, and we'll talk about that in a second, is what they need to do as that owner, as that founder. And they feel that if they don't do that, they're not fulfilling their role.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'm neglecting the business. I'm neglecting my role by not attending that meeting and doing those things.
Yeah. So thinking a little bit about commerciality,
Yep.
Macdara, obviously we've been on both sides of the table in terms of selling work, but also buying work and buying kind of services.
Yep.
My view on this is always that if I'm a buyer, if I meet with, say, one person who's the owner, the founder, the most senior person in the business, initially, it might make me feel maybe a bit warm and fuzzy. It might make me feel like I'm getting the white glove treatment, right? But that can quickly turn into maybe a perception that the business is maybe not busy because you're getting white glove treatment all the time.
Yep.
But also there might be that might slow down decision making because you have such a dependence. But also most buyers buy on things like price and service rather than feeling like they have to face off to one person who is the founder of the business.
Yeah, and I think depending on the size of the buyer, it can also make them worry about that wider resilience of that business. If there's only one key senior person, God forbid something happens to them, you as the buyer may be thinking, well, who else is going to pick up the phone? Who can deal with this contract? Who's going to deal with me? So there is that broader resilience point and capability piece to be able to demonstrate I have XY person at the right level in the business to work with you, help you manage the contract past that initial phase.
Yeah, and that realization that if a founder needs to be involved with and sign off every quote, every decision, every hire, that might be okay in the beginning. When you're starting out, you might be operating in a small way, you might be having to be scrappy, but as you want to scale your business, it's important to get to that place where as a founder, as an owner, you're able to not just delegate, you're able to set up those systems working around you and underneath you that enable the business to scale in a way that not just makes your life easier, but also from an outside perspective, whether that be a buyer, a client, or someone looking at acquiring your organization potentially sees that you are important, but you're not such a cornerstone that if you weren't there for a week, the business would fall apart.
Yeah. So maybe we'll jump into that one a little, George. And let's say I'm a business owner and I'm at the moment signing off every quote, every pricing proposal, and I'm nervous about letting anybody else get involved with that. How would you help me learn to step away? How would you guide somebody through that?
So I would always typically break this down into two distinct parts, right? So I think the approach that we never take is to try and enforce a one-size-fits-all solution into any business, particularly when we're working with small and medium-sized businesses. It's rarely the right answer. So it's always about taking a bit of time to do some discovery, to do some fact-finding, and then to be able to design and curate something that works for the business. So I know we're talking with a business at the moment where part of their challenge, but also opportunity, is that the two owners are actually more involved in the business than they want or probably need to be. They've kind of surfaced this to us.
Yeah.
I think there is a danger of just saying, okay, we'll step away more, trust more, let go of more.
Yeah.
But cutting those apron strings, being able to put in place the systems that work for that business, not the next business along or the last business that did this, is so key. So having that little bit of a discovery process, helping businesses to see where they are, where they could be, what that journey might look like, and then coming up with something proportionate for that business. So it's not one size fits all, square peg round hole stuff. It's actually trying to come up with a system, a mechanism, a way of working that suits the business, the owners, but also the staff around them, right? Because organizational, cultural, behavioral change, if done well, can be fantastic and it can really set you up for success. If it's done badly and it doesn't deliver the results in the right way, it can be like an earthquake going through a small business. And it can really, upset the apple cart, and it can lead to kind of detrimental results.
Yeah, I think, to build on that a little, what I would and have talked about to people about delegation is to think, okay, say I'm now passing this over to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well done. Congratulations, as they always say.
Promotion.
Yeah. Is to remember that you're still retaining the ownership. So what's happening here is you're now going to do 90% of the work, but I will still own the risk and the responsibility.
So you're accountable.
Exactly.
I'm responsible.
Exactly. And I think what's important in terms of maybe commerciality and let's say pricing is that I give you the guidelines. So I say, okay, George, we're going to usually look to achieve 10%, 20% margin. I'm giving you the guide rails to work within, and you do the heavy lifting. You price the contract, you prepare all of that. And then we have a weekly meeting, whatever it might be, where you present to me. We're within the guidelines, but maybe I've met the client a few times. Pricing is as much an art as a science, as we all know.
Yep, absolutely.
So layering that in, but giving you the opportunity to have some rules to work within, and knowing that I'm going to be there and we'll make kind of the decision together. I think those elements in terms of that commerciality can be really helpful.
And I think it's fascinating, right? If you think about a busy business, easy for me to say, if an owner, a founder, a senior executive attends or tries to attend every single meeting, whether it be operational, whether it be commercial, whether it be risk focused, whatever it might be, what you're going to find is that things are going to be slowed down, and it doesn't lead to decisions being made in the most effective, efficient way. So not to kind of criticize, because sometimes being involved is required, right? Founders often know their business the best. But with that comes a kind of counterbalance or a point that runs alongside that they may know their business the best, but as they scale, particularly if they want to look for an exit for a trade sale, a potential buyer would look at that and say, yes, the owner knows the business the best, but what that has resulted in is their one downs and two downs wouldn't effectively be able to run the business, control the business, do what needs to be done. And therefore, that can really start to affect valuation as well as resilience.
Yeah. So this is something you've done, George, in your career, is evaluate businesses. So could you drill into that a little more in terms of, as a potential buyer, what are you looking at in a business to drive the valuation and its overall attractiveness?
Absolutely. So clearly, we're going to assume here commercial kind of targets are being met, success.
Yeah.
The business is running in a commercially viable way. It's meeting its profit and EBITDA targets, etc. From an organizational perspective, a potential buyer, and I've been on both sides of the table as it relates to acquisitions, a potential buyer will look at bench strength. And that is really, your level where you exist, but also your one downs, your leadership team, the people that coexist around you. And if there is key man or woman dependence on a business, it's not to say that a business won't be of interest to a potential buyer, but what it says to them is that without this one individual or two individuals, whatever the number is, let's say they all of a sudden stepped away from the business, which can happen, right? An acquisition goes through, they may have a period where they need to stay involved, but then suddenly they decide to step away. And if there's not that bench strength, if there's not that succession, if there's not that ability to make leaders redundant, and meaning that in a way of not elbowing them out the way, but reducing the need for them to be as involved in every decision and process, that can really start to affect valuation. And a potential buyer will look at obviously a myriad of factors when it comes to making an acquisition, but one of them will always be the breadth and depth of people within the organization. So we always talk about, this is not about org charts. This is not about kind of numbers of people. It's about mindset. It's about culture. It's about training, but it's crucially about succession planning.
Yeah. And I guess we've all been in a meeting where somebody sent somebody a proxy or a stand-in, but it's very obvious they have no authority.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, I'll have to go back and check that, or I'm not sure. And it's really, I guess, making sure that those individuals have that decision-making ability and authority to really continue and go out into the world and represent and make things happen for the business.
And that's where it's so important that when we look at our people that are around us, is about making sure that they're not just there to cover your calendar. They're not just there as I can send, my number two to a meeting and they can cover for me, but actually they're not empowered to make the decisions that need to be made. Or they're involved in a commercial discussion and their hands are pretty tied. They need to feel that empowerment, but also have the confidence and the skill set to be able to represent the business and the leader in a way that drives the business forward. And this is not just about, going back to that cutting the apron strings kind of analogy. If you do that too quickly and too sharply and it's out of control, that causes more problems. But what this is about is trying to find a way where you can have people around you that can almost run the business in a way that you can step back, that there is trust, that there are processes in place and exception management processes in place that ensure that it can be done in a scalable, effective and controlled way.
But also, I think, understanding that these things take time.
Absolutely.
Right. And if you really want to build a resilient business with people who can make decisions in your stead, you've got to take a 12, 18 month, 24 month view on that.
Absolutely.
Develop those people, have them shadow you in meetings, observe how you perform, deal with those commercial conversations and really invest in them. You can't be somebody who thinks, oh, I'm doing everything here and I'm sick of it. And here, as you say, throw it at somebody and walk out the door. You've got to invest that time, and you either need to do that yourself or get some help. If that's not something that is comes naturally to you in terms of the people development, the explaining that,
Mm.
the education, the coaching, then really need to think about how you achieve that. But it's absolutely key to freeing up your time, either to do more business development, sales, to do, I don't know, maybe you've got another business that you're trying to
Yep.
get off the ground, or you do want to make an exit. But it's really important to understand the investment required to do that as well.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point, Magdara, in that, when you meet with a business leader, most of the time, the business is their baby.
Yeah.
They may have started it from nothing, or they may have acquired it early, or it might be something they've grown. You clearly spend an awful lot of time invested both physically, emotionally, mentally in that business. And I think it becomes almost a difficult decision in your mind, or a difficult thought to process, that for us to perform and outperform, actually what I might need to do as a leader is step back.
Yeah.
And it's almost it's counterintuitive
Yes.
to your own thinking that as a leader you want to be involved, you want to be supportive, you want to be seen as present and not vacant. But actually, if that becomes that a business is so dependent on one person, it becomes difficult to move it forward. And what you said around the time to do this is absolutely right. It will become not just a better, more effective process of bringing people up the curve by doing it over a period of time, but again, using that word resilience, it will also increase the resilience of your business, because people will have not just a breadth of knowledge that can be built up quite quickly in a lot of cases, but they'll also have that depth of experience of, oh, I've seen, the founder, the CEO do that before. I've shadowed them. I've been part of conversations, and you learn that through doing. It's very much we can teach people in a classroom basis or, online basis a lot, but the knowledge doesn't really stick, and it isn't really credible until they're able to practice actually what that means in a real business environment.
Yeah, and it's that credibility, as we all know, when you talk to somebody, you can see it in their eyes.
Absolutely.
You want to see that person is calm, they know what you're talking about, they're not freaking out, and that's clear and visible. And really learning to, separate yourself from the business and start to think, well, I'm trying to sell something other than me.
Correct. Yeah.
But they're no longer buying me, which is what's probably made the business successful. So as you say, it is counterintuitive, because up until now, a lot of your business has been built on people buying you and buying into you, where now you're needing to step away a little and say, I'm now looking to sell what I've built, and it is now this separate thing and separate entity to me.
And, two more points that I would add, and these are going to sound like I'm stating the bleeding obvious, so I apologize in advance for doing that. But when it comes to owning and running and growing a business and looking to exit, number one, as leaders, as founders, we should be looking for opportunities to get some time back. We work in a pressurized environment. Time is a finite resource to us, but obviously most of us have got other things going on in and around our lives. And if you work for a large corporate, or you work for an organization where you are more of an employee than a founder or an entrepreneur, sometimes you struggle to get that flexibility. So it's actually a net positive being able to step back, trust others, empower others, to be able to get some of your time, some of your energy back, which can often be, taken up by running the business. And again, that's stating the obvious, right? But If I think then about a more commercial consideration here, what I've often found is that where there is a really strong succession plan in place, where there is a strong ability to point to who are the next in line, who are the people that are going to be able to run the business if the founder steps away, once an acquisition has happened, you will be able to achieve a shorter earnout period if you're able to demonstrate greater organizational resilience rather than an acquisition happens. There is a huge amount of reliance on the owner and maybe a small number of people around them. What that will often result in is a longer earnout, which obviously can be quite frustrating. It can be quite difficult, particularly if the owner wants to look to do something else or wants to retire. So it actually works best for everyone involved if there is that structure, that system in place.
Yeah, because you're then, as you say, in a rush almost to get it all in place, to build that resilience and build that autonomy rather than having done it in advance. And it can hit the valuation, hit you in the pocket, or leave you, as you say, still in a business that you really have probably psychologically moved on from.
Yeah.
And really want to be getting on with other things. So that again probably will be fairly obvious if you're getting frustrated and so absolutely, if you want to exit and this is on your horizon, or you want to do other things, it's really something to think about. And it starts with your people. We won't get into the process operational side, which is a bit more boring and dry, but really it is about building that team. Who are the people in your business that can do this? Or do you need to get people in?
Yeah.
That's another one, maybe for another day. But I've certainly had experience where I've wanted to bring a more senior person into a team or an organization, and I've not been able to find them.
Right.
And I've actually, in the end, given that opportunity to somebody internal, and then in the knowledge that you will be more responsible for, I guess, to use the football analogy, it's a bit like buying the young talent.
Absolutely.
Knowing you're going to have to help them grow rather than, a kind of experienced, more proven player. But that's again, we're kind of teaching people to suck eggs there. But that people piece, you need to be thinking about that. What do I have? Do I have these people in the organization already, or will I need to bring them in?
Yeah. And I think just reflecting, right, on that conversation is, and this sounds quite mechanical, it's probably not meant in that way. If I was talking to an organization, an individual looking to potentially, have an exit horizon in mind, I'd be encouraging them to think, if a potential buyer, or buyers plural, sat in front of you tomorrow, would you be able to articulate the risks that your business has in a concise, coherent way? And would they be able to recognize those risks and the plan that you've got in place to mitigate them? And a crucial piece of that, and we cannot kind of, state this enough, is the people element, and spending time, effort, sometimes money, on making sure that the people you have in place are going to be effective now, but are also going to enable you to scale and show that resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in many businesses, people will be more across the commercial risks. So maybe client concentration, so many people have this issue where in a good way, they've got a client that's starting to take up, a large percentage of the revenue. Everyone's trying to diversify. It's not always that easy.
Yeah.
So those more commercial elements in terms of maybe sales aren't where you want them to be, etc. But thinking more broadly, what are the things that would really stand out? And more importantly, what's the plan? Do you have a plan to remediate those issues? Or is it something you just keep kicking down the road?
Yeah, and that's where, and this is not meant as a sales plug, but that is where having that independent, objective view at the outset or even midway through this journey is so important, right? And it's not to mark someone's homework or say, oh, you've missed that and you've missed that. And, there's what this is about is having an objective external lens that is applied to a business, even if you get that diagnostic or report or whatever it is, and you choose to risk accept some of it, or you choose to remediate some of it, but just having it can be so powerful to a potential buyer. It is showing that you have control of your business, of the risks that you might face, but also that you have gone out of your way to understand it. And that shows organizational maturity.
Yeah, 100%. So if you, as a lot of owners do, are thinking, I want to exit at some point in the future, pick up the phone. Hopefully you call us, but call somebody to come in and kick the tires, have a look at the business, and as George says, give you that objective view to say, wow, well, this is a huge red flag over here that you need to remediate, and it's probably going to take you a year or two to do that. So really, even for your own peace of mind, have that conversation sooner rather than later.
Yeah, agreed.
Great. So I think we'll leave it there. That's enough to digest for now. I think we've talked about bringing your team up the food chain commercially, in their general responsibility, their awareness of the business, and trying to bring them closer to you. So shortening that gap between the owner, founder, leader, and your next level down. That's often, so think about it in that way is a good way to try and close that gap, bringing them closer to you. And you're trying to, remove yourself from the day to day, but bring them closer to you in terms of their commercial judgment, their decision-making ability to run the business. Say you had to go away for a month. How would the business operate? How would they do that? Hopefully we've helped with some of those issues today. We've got some exciting episodes coming up where we'll be talking to some experts in this area around buying and selling SME businesses. So very excited about that.
Absolutely. And just to thank everyone for tuning in. Right, Dara quite rightly said we've got some really exciting guests coming up, and we look forward to bringing you some more episodes. As ever, we welcome your feedback. We welcome any suggestions of topics you'd like us to cover. And if you'd be so kind as to follow us on any of the podcast platforms, and give us a positive review, we'd really appreciate it. But until next time, we'll say thank you again for tuning in, and it's goodbye from him.
And goodbye from me.